Question number 4, how do I lose weight? My friend, that is a loaded question. How do I lose weight? Okay, so this could be a year-long video series that I could get into, much less a couple minutes on one question. What's up everybody, I'm Mitch. Thanks so much for checking out another video, another Fitness Friday, another Rider Training 101 with iRide Supplements. Now in today's video, I've got a few questions here that I've gotten from a couple viewers, a couple subscribers. And I'm gonna answer a couple questions for you, try and clear the air a little bit because there might be some questions that maybe you're a little too embarrassed to ask. You've always just wondered, so let's hit it. Okay, so question number 1 is, will lifting weights help me ride my bike because I thought gaining muscle was bad? Valid question, and honestly, this is one that I think gets a lot of negative attention. So here's the deal. When you lift weights, you're not just gonna Hulk out like Arnold, you're not just gonna become this massive bodybuilder. You have to train a very specific way to look like that, to get like that, with the goal of hypertrophy, which is to gain muscle, in mind. You really have to train for that one thing. Lifting weights is not going to cause that for you. What lifting weights will give you though is a lot of strength, a lot of power, a lot of endurance, a bunch of the stuff that you really need when you're riding either a dirt bike, a mountain bike, whatever it is. It's gonna build up a bunch of the tissue, a bunch of the muscles, the stabilizers, the tendons, the connective tissue. It's gonna build up everything. It's gonna give you stability in your joints, so if you do have a crash or something, you got something there to protect you and something to fight back, something to push back against that massive impact that you take, or whatever it may be. So short answer to the question is no, you're not going to gain a bunch of muscle, you're not going to Hulk out, and you know, a lot of people think that that's going to happen and then they're going to have a hard time riding the bike. Trust me, that's not what happens. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of years to look like that. That doesn't just happen overnight. So don't be afraid to lift weights, don't be afraid to get to that strength and that power, because it will help you as a rider. Trust me, you'll greatly benefit from doing it. Next question. Question number 2 is, if I do cardio training, some form of aerobic training, and some weights, which one should you do first? That's another question that I get quite often. So if you're looking at doing cardio or doing weights first, it doesn't really matter, honestly, which one you do, because your body will adapt to whatever you're doing. It used to be a thing where people thought, well, if I do the cardio first, I'm burning some of those glycogen stores, so then when I go to lift the weights, I don't have as much strength or endurance in me. That's not really the case anymore. So you can do the cardio first, and what the science, what the data is showing us, that your body will still have the fuel to perform after, it just gets it from a different source. So if doing cardio first helps you out, do the cardio first. If lifting the weights first you find helps you out, and then because that's kind of the fun part and the cardio is a bore, you can kind of get through it, then do that first. Either way, it doesn't really matter, because the key thing here is that you want to do a program that you can stick to, because you could have the best program in the world, but if you don't stick to it, well, that program means nothing, really, does it? So stick to whatever program you can, and if that means weights first over cardio or vice versa, you do you. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the goal will be the same and the results will be the same. So, you know, looking big picture, do whichever one. Question number 3, how do I choose the right routine for my goal? Good question. So your routine greatly depends on your goal, obviously, and you're asking that question for the right reasons. But here's the thing. If you're worried about hypertrophy, so gaining muscle, you know, again, you have to specifically train for that. If you're looking at anaerobic training, which would be something like CrossFit, again, you specifically have to train for that. If you're looking at aerobic training, which is like road cycling, we have lots of endurance that way. You have a big set of lungs, a large lung capacity. You have to train for that. So when you're looking at setting your training program for your goal, you really have to ask yourself, what is my objective here? Is it to get bigger lungs and have more gas in the tank aerobically? Aerobically being running, again, something that's not anaerobic. Anaerobic meaning that it involves the muscle tissue as well, which builds lactic acid and then you tucker out quickly. Again, like CrossFit, that's a good example of anaerobic training. So what is your goal? What is your objective here? If it's to build some anaerobic, then something like CrossFit's gonna work. If it's build hypertrophy, well then lifting weights with the goal of hypertrophy in mind, with the kind of that old school bodybuilding stuff, is going to work. So whatever your goal is, set your program towards that. And yes, you can actually mix all of those things and get some from each one. Absolutely you can. And CrossFit, honestly, is kind of a middle ground in all that. That's why you see the guys that got a fair amount of muscle on them, but they still got lots of gas in the tank. because they do running, they do lifting weights, they do all of that stuff. So I would say, depending on your program, what is your objective, and then gear the program for that goal. Question number 4, how do I lose weight? My friend, that is a loaded question. How do I lose weight? Okay, so this could be a year-long video series that I could get into, much less a couple minutes on one question. Long story short, what you've heard of calories in, calories out, yes, generally speaking, yes. You just want to burn more than you're taking in. In a very general sense, yes, that's going to help you lose weight. Now, at some point, your body's going to get to a plateau, and I'm sure you've seen this or you've come across this yourself. You'll say, okay, well, I'm eating about this much and I'm burning more and I'm losing weight, and then the weight loss stalls. That's because your body's hit that plateau. It's recognized that the input is lower than the output. So then what do you have to do? You have to lower your calories even more, and then you'll start losing some weight again. But eventually, obviously, you can only lower your calories so much before your body goes into somewhat of a starvation mode, and then you can't seem to lose weight anymore. So how do you lose weight? Yes, it is quite as simple as calories in versus calories out. This is probably going to start a huge discussion. At its most very basic level, that is it. However, it is a lot more complicated than that too. So if you do have any other questions, just reach out to me, DM me on Instagram at Fit4Moto, 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 and I can help you out with that. But in its most basic sense, yes. Question number 5, how do I gain weight? Well, that's kind of the opposite of number 4. The calories out are less than the calories in. Not all weight gain is equal, and not all calories are created equal either, if that makes sense. So you can't just eat a bunch of McDonald's, gain weight from that, and expect that to be good weight either. Depending on your metabolism, your metabolic capacity, your genetics, yeah, some people can get away with eating a lot more. Certainly riders can, because we burn a lot of calories when we ride the bike. So you would be able to get a lot more calories in, not necessarily great calories, without having some of those detrimental effects to it. I do have an ebook that's completely free. If you go to iRideSupplements.com, it lays everything out for you, what's good, what's bad, makes it real straightforward, real easy. Check that out. So if you're having a hard time gaining weight, if you're a skinnier, smaller dude, and you're like, man, no matter what I do, I can't seem to gain weight, check that out. It gives you kind of a really good starting point for that kind of stuff, and it gives you some recommendations on what you should eat to balance things out and help you get on the right track. Next question, what is more important for weight loss, calories or macros? Ooh, again, that's a loaded question, and I could spend a lot of time on. As a matter of fact, I might do some stuff on the little whiteboard there in another video, because this can be a really complicated one. Calories or macros? If you don't know what macros are, it's proteins, carbs, and fats, the 3 things that basically make up everything that we eat. It's kind of 6 in one, half a dozen in the other, really. So it's just a different way of measuring what you're eating. You can do total calories or you can do macros. I find macros a better way to do weight loss because it's easier to track. It makes more sense in most people's heads. And again, a lot of my books, my ebook, nutrition book and stuff like that, it talks about things in terms of calories, but more specifically macros. So I'm a huge fan of the macros. I think it's easier to lose weight when you're counting macros versus calories. The calories are just these huge numbers that don't make a lot of sense. Whereas if you're talking, okay, I have 10 grams of protein, 10 grams of carbs, and 10 grams of fat, those are much more real numbers for people to deal with, and I find that those help a little bit more. So personally, I like the macros. Next question, how do I get that much protein in my diet with limited calories? So if you've checked out my nutrition book, there are protein recommendations for athletes, for riders, because we are higher than the average person because our bodies are being put through a whole lot more than the average person. I do have recommendations in there. However, it can be tough to eat that much meat, honestly, or whatever form you're getting your protein from. There are a bunch of sources in there. That can be tough to get the protein that you need from that, which is why we have our protein powder. Great tasting, chocolate mixes easily, tastes fantastic. That's a great way to get it in. So personally, what I do is I have a scoop and a half of protein first thing in the morning because I've been sleeping all night. My body's kind of gone catabolic, meaning there's nothing in its system. So it's eating itself literally. Scoop and a half in the morning and then a scoop and a half at night before I go to bed to try and get me through most of the evening. and helps your body recover while you sleep. That's a great source of getting your protein. So if you're struggling to get the protein in because you checked out some stuff and you're like, how the heck am I gonna get that much protein? I can't eat that much chicken or beef or fish or eggs or whatever source you're using for protein. It could be cheese, I don't know. Shakes, use some powdered form. Again, obviously I'm a little biased, but the stuff that we have is fantastic. It's a great way to get that extra protein in and make sure you're getting what you need. Okay, next question. How safe are energy drinks? Oh, this is the last question? Oh, okay. Last question. How safe are energy drinks? Ooh, you guys are tough with the questions today. Like they're great questions, but they're deep questions. That's a loaded question. How safe are energy drinks? Okay, so for the average adult, yes, they're safe. They wouldn't allow them to be sold if they weren't considered safe. However, there is a limit, right? I mean, some people have like 5 of these things a day. That's not healthy. That's probably gonna give the ticker some issues, right? 1 a day, yeah, that's okay. I mean, there's a lot of caffeine, there's a lot of stuff in those things, but that would be fine. But you know, it's like everything in moderation, right? Yes, they're safe in moderation, but a lot of people think, well, if 1 is good, 2 is better, 4 is best, and they just start pounding these things back. That could potentially cause problems. Some people don't handle them very well. Some people are pretty, what's the word? Sensitive. Some people are pretty sensitive to stimulants. So, you know, that much might hurt them. Generally speaking, yes, they're safe. Maybe not for kids. Definitely wouldn't recommend that. But for adults, yeah, you can have 1 a day and you're gonna be fine. So there you go. There's a couple quick questions. Keep them coming, keep DMing me, keep asking me questions. I love answering this kind of stuff. For years, I struggled finding answers to some of the questions that I had, and I learned through trial and error, and I love to share that information with you. I hope you liked the video. Keep the questions coming. Head over to iRideSupplements.com, grab yourself some subs for the next video, and we'll see you then.